Good morning and welcome everyone again. Special thanks to our guest speakers and trainers, namely Nicolas Stanchov, who is Senior Advisor on Energy Efficiency Policies and Tools, coordinator of a number of European projects dealing with deep renovation of buildings, EPCs and ESCO markets, and he is a representative of the Europa Consortium, which is as sharing his video presentation, a group of companies and authorities throughout Europe aiming, in short, I would say, at boosting EPC contracts. So we really appreciate your attendance today. Nicolas, thanks again. Then we have the ICE Director, Pier Gabriele Andreoli, having nearly 20 years experience and expertise on EPC design and processes, assisting especially public authorities either on public buildings or on street lighting projects. And last but not least, of course, our very skilled and experienced French colleagues from Aurae, with Laurent Chenassot first among all, but I would like also to thank Marine and Rogelio for providing us training through the video presentation. Definitely, let's get started. So in line with the first question and answer session that we had in October, I kindly ask each speaker to recap in 5 minutes their video presentation, and then we will get through the proper question and answer session, starting from the questions gathered beforehand in the past day from partners. Of course, partners, if you do need to make further questions, please raise up your hand by clicking on the button at the right side of the Zoom keyboard, or just jumping in into the chat, and we will give you the floor, of course, for any additional question that you might have. So if everything is clear and fine, kindly ask Nicolas to start summing up in 5 minutes the content of his presentation, which was focused on different EPC schemes and models, and especially focused on their Europa platform. So Nicolas, please, the floor is yours. And thanks again.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to send me that summary of who I am, because I like that person very much. It's very flattering. Thank you. I think I can sum up what our project is very simply. We believe that we will not be able to renovate sufficient number of buildings fast enough in a manner that will help citizens while reducing CO2 if there isn't literally a systemic change in the manner in which we finance, develop projects, execute projects, and monitor those projects today. We have centered our focus on how the financial engineering should be in place so as to align the interests of all of the stakeholders. What do I mean by this? I mean that, and if you remember in the presentation, there was those two triangles, one after the other one with a lot of risk and one with less risk. Regardless of what policymakers and regulators do, companies will always find ways to make money. What we would like to do is for them to make the money honestly so they can sleep happily at night. So that means we have to be upfront in the first part, the execution risk, to say to companies, you're taking this risk. If you really take this risk, you really make money, because you will have problems. You will have failures. That's the execution risk. The second risk is the collection risk. People pay their bills. We have found across Europe, contrary to what we hear in the news about bad payments of people not paying their heat in Bulgaria or in Latvia, I heard exactly as if, you know, the same articles were being published in both countries. When I dug in, what I found out is that heating bills, once you don't pay a heating bill in 1954, you still owe that bill from 1954, which is completely uneconomical. It should have been written off. So as a result, when the utilities say how much money is owed to them, they're not saying in the last 2 years. They're saying ever since the very beginning of time, which of course is enormous amounts of money. So the collection risk is very low. From this information, what do I say? I say, let's split the financing. Let's have this happen only once the work is done and is done right, the collection. And upfront, let's make clear that there's working capital that is not too expensive for SMEs, that may have a guarantee from the state, so as to encourage SMEs to start creating businesses where they hire people for the long term, where they buy equipment instead of renting it just for the season of construction, etc. So that then these companies can make money. And if we keep the same regulations in place for at least 10 years, then these companies are going to invest in their future, which means they're going to invest in the building, which means that the owners will be happy, which means that then you start having a positive cycle where there are more returns for the state as opposed to less. In short, that's the basic concept, aligning all the interests from the state, the EU, the state, all the way down to the final beneficiary. What does he need? And what he needs is health, especially now that because of the pandemic, people understand it, and they need safety and they need comfort. We give them these three things by reducing their energy consumption. Then we have saved CO2. We're in line with our goals for 2050, and our citizens are happier. Because we have 20-year contracts of service, that means that step by step, the owners themselves start to learn energy efficient reflexes. Where at the beginning, for instance, in Eastern Europe, people, when they had 20-year EPC contracts, the first winter, they leave their windows open, as they always did. By the second winter, they were closing them because they started to trust the ventilation. People explained to them this is how the ventilation, and I have a very funny movie about that, which I'll share to you guys as a goodbye. So that's just in short. And from there, I'll just go on to the question, right? That's what I'm supposed to do? Yeah. So,
yeah, later on. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Nicolas. Yeah. Now it's the turn of my director, I would say. So please, Pier Gabriele, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Elisa, and good morning, everyone. My video presentation focused on how public grants and incentives can be potentially included into the investment plan on energy performance contracts for public buildings. We have recalled that in many contexts, the so-called blending funds can be relevant in supporting and integrating the ESCO's investments, and help also public bodies in getting the end and a reduced yearly fee to be paid. The aim of integrating public funds with the private one is to generate investment plan which can be attractive, or at least which can be approached by ESCOs in the concerned market. If this does not occur, the risk that the designed EPC scheme gets no interest from the market is really high. We have also recalled in detail what public fund can be integrated in EPC investment plan at European Union, national and regional level, and how they can be used and concretely included in the investment plans, at least according to the Energy Agency experience. We have reported a not exhaustive but exemplary list of grants at Italian level, but we deem that each European region has a similar grants. We have stressed that in our experience, all grants have all common requirements, namely, first, required technical performances of energy retrofit measures higher than business as usual solutions. And the second, financial reporting rules to be carefully met and for whom to be well informed in advance. We have also shared the booking system in place for some grants, thus reducing risk for the ESCOs and public authorities, and ensuring, unless big issues occurring, they will mostly likely get them in the end once the worst will be over. In some cases, pre-financing is also allowed. This is all in terms of my presentation recap. And thanks, and I'm available for questions.
Thanks, Pier Gabriele. Now I would like to give the floor to Laurent for a 5 minutes recap of his presentation. he tackled the issue of engaging SMEs in the EPC processes. Thanks, Laurent. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Yes, the objective of this part of the training session was to explain how in France we have experience to engage SMEs in the EPC process. Then the first part of the presentation was to explain that we always speak about ESCOs, but ESCOs are not SMEs. ESCOs are just a part of big enterprises interested mostly in energy supply. And if you want to interest SMEs, you have also to think about other type of companies, general contracting, building renovation companies that are not interested in energy supply, but only in the work, and also on SMEs. The specification of SMEs is that they are working on one type of work, for example, ventilation or heating system installation, and they have to group together to give a common offer, common answer to a tender. So you have to have in mind that ESCOs are not the only companies that can be involved in interested by EPCs. The second part was why do we have to engage SMEs? Because we can do the job with ESCOs. So is it sufficient? We don't think in France or in our region, we don't think it's sufficient, because at local level, when we renovate public buildings, yes, we want to reduce CO2 emissions. Yes, we want to reduce energy consumption, but we want also to create jobs, to create activity for local enterprises. And this is a very high preoccupation in the mind of the elected people of the territories. And then it's very important to tackle this subject, because if it's just to give work to enterprises that are located in Paris, it's not interested for the municipalities. Then we have what are the obstacles to include SMEs in EPCs? There are three types of obstacles. The first one is the quantitative issues, because the project must not be too big, because if it's too big, they are not able to answer. On the other side, the project must not be too short, too small, because if it's too small, it's not a business for them, and they can't invest in such a project. The second part is qualitative issues, because energy saving guarantee is quite complicated, and it's a very specific job. And yes, they have to have in mind that there is a real market for them to include these skills in their own skills. The third aspect is administrative complexity of public procurement, and we have to find a way to standardize public procurement procedure, to simplify them in order to let the SMEs able to give an answer. In the presentation, in the training session, we gave you 6 different types of actions that you can make on your territory to progressively include SMEs. First, analyze your regional market, make sourcing to see who they are, what are their skills, what are their needs. Analyze your project regarding SMEs capacity. For example, if you have a EPC project of 2 million euros, but in this 2 million euros contract, you have 1.5 million euros for energy supply, it's not for local SMEs. On the contrary, if you have a big renovation with 1.5 million euros work and just 500,000 euros energy supply, here you can give a place to local SMEs. Third, you have to adapt your project and choose a strategy adapted to this capacity of local enterprises to answer. The fourth point is to organize information meetings, because you have to inform them of the offers you are, of the tenders you are preparing, but also to give them a perspective of the next tenders. If it's only for one tender, it's difficult for them. But if you say, okay, this is the first one, but in the next year, we will have 10, 15 of such tenders, it's more interesting for them. And finally, you have also to assist them to get new capacity in terms of public procurement, to group together. So you have to organize services for SMEs to help them to group, to answer to public procurement, public tenders, and so on. And finally, the last point is to you can yes, organize a fair arrangement between SMEs and ESCOs, because they have a common interest in a tender. And so there is some ways to explain the ESCOs that it's better for them to work with SMEs, and on the other side to explain to SMEs that they can work also with ESCOs. And it's we have different ways to do that, and it's quite, yes, interesting to do. Yes, that's the whole experience we have to share with you.
Thanks, Emilio, Laurent, and thanks to all our speakers for recalling the main topics they tackled in their video presentation. I would start now with the first round of questions gathered so far from project partners, but please, again, partners, feel free to raise up your hand and jump in order to make this session as much interactive as possible. So the first question, or actually a group of questions, is addressed to Nicolas. And in detail, some partner asked if you can better explain the concept and the meaning of the words that you used in your presentation, EPC under the hood. What does it means in detail? And second question was regarding what the meaning is of the Europa subscription service. Can we figure it out it as an EPC facilitation service? And what are the basic criteria to use this service? And if you can provide a concrete example. That is enough for now, I would say. Thanks, Nicolas. You are muted.
There's such a convergence of our thinking today, and I think this is the first point to make. I heard Gabriele say, how to support this work in a way that that actually gets companies to work. Then Laurent spoke about how do we get SMEs and not ESCOs. And here, Siemens Austria told me, no, we do not want to work with other companies. So I want to learn from Laurent how to do that. But it really is this convergence of working locally with local companies and making it possible for them. And one of the issues with that is, when we use the words like EPC, energy performance contracting guarantees, and all of this language, actually all it is an agreement that you will do this work to provide a service to your client, and you will guarantee this client for the duration of the contract. If you don't do these things, these are the things that happen. If you do these things and you do better than these things, these are the things that happen. That's all an EPC is. So if you explain it that way to an SME, he understands it. But if you say to him, you have to be an ESCO, it's like, why should I be an ESCO? I'm already hard enough for me to be what I am. So ESCO for me is not a word to be used. And this is the beauty of actually Silvio and I misunderstanding each other. He talked subscription in Italian and in French as well. In subscription, it's how you gather money. But in English, a subscription, you subscribe to a magazine. King. But as a result, we ended up with something much better. And I only understood our misunderstanding when I was talking to another Italian in another project. So we call it so this is how we can explain both things. It's an EPC, yes, but we don't need to use the word EPC. So it's under the hood. Everybody in this room who knows what is ESCOs and who knows what is EPC, everybody understands it. To the homeowner, to the SME, what they're saying is, I, the SME, going to sell you a subscription that will allow us to deliver to you the following services for the 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. I think it should be long. Other people think it should be shorter. And I will deliver the following services guaranteed. That's it. It's very simple. And it works entirely both in what all three of us have said. Now, a specific example. Today, there's no specific example of somebody signing an actual subscription agreement because we're still working on that. What we can show you was something which was called an energy performance contract in Latvia, but actually was a subscription agreement. The agreement was very simple. You will pay the same heating bill that you've always paid, and in exchange for the next 20 years, we will be providing you temperatures during the season of 21.5. We will keep your building and everything we touched in your building in good condition, and we will return it to you in good working order, guaranteed. That's it. That's the subscription agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. I don't know if there are any comments or further questions on what reported by Nicolas. Otherwise, I will move to the other questions addressed to Pier Gabriele. The first question, it is related to the case of public funds coming close to cover 100% of the total investments. And in this case, how to keep the risk allocation on the ESCO's shoulders again, and how to make sure that the planet and what is foreseen in the EPC in terms of energy savings are actually achieved. This was the first question. Yeah.
Good question, and Silvio know very well the mechanism, the Italian mechanism also that involved the Italian, but not also Italian ESCOs. So we try to use the mechanism of booking before the tender, and this is the only way to answer to this question and also to this problem. We are discussing now with the energy authority some mechanism to ensure the ESCO to reach this help, and we have some instruments, for example, in conto termico. That is one of our instruments that help this, can help to solve this problem, to book before the tender and to ensure to the ESCO the maximum to receive these incentives after. And there's no solution to this answer. I don't know, Silvio, what do you what do you think about this mechanism, conto termico, and the booking system can help us to solve the problem?
No, yes, it is an issue, and but it's I think it's also a matter of allocation of risk. I mean, if the risks are clearly allocated on the ESCO, so it is their mission to get the money. If they are not able, then they might have problems. Yeah. I don't have a clearer answer for this, of course. Yeah.
And also, the last time we use less than 100% of incentives in our financial plans. It's another solution. We have a lot of helps, a lot of incentives, but we don't use the wool that we have because it's too much for an ESCO. It's too risky for an ESCO to have a tender with 100% of incentives. Then we use 80% or less. It's another solution to mix.
Yeah, maybe also we can give the floor to Laurent for his comments.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes,
Laurent is saying that we have also analyzed this question in France. The best solution is we found is not to pay completely the work before the savings level is reached. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, this is a solution because, as you know, in France, we don't do the third-party financing. So we have to pay everything after the end of the work and then start the energy savings guarantee. And so this problem we have always. And the best solution we found is not to pay all the work at the end of the work, but only 90 or 95%. And then we keep 5% in reserve. And this will be paid only if when the savings level will be reached after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years, or so on. And then it's a way to say to the ESCO, if you want this money, you have to reach the goals, the saving guarantee.
Yeah, this is clear, and I think it can be a good option. However, I think it's very important to make the best calculation of this guarantee, let's say, what you keep, because it should be high enough to punish, let's say, the ESCO, because they could have interest in not achieving the performance and leaving this away. I mean, it's always a matter of balancing.
Yeah, yes, you're right, Silvio. It's a very easier in France because we don't include energy supply in the contract. And then the savings guarantee is not the interest of enterprises is not in energy supply. If you include in the contract the energy supply, the company, the ESCO, can take more benefit to not to reach the energy savings guarantee. You understand?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, Laurent, that's why I'm just going to jump in. And that's what led me to the conclusion that I'll let the service company get its own working capital, take the 100% risk, maybe with some guarantees from the state, and only once they have met the results and they've proven those results, do they then get it off their balance sheet.
Yeah.
So that they can go on and do the next building. I think in hearing what both of you have said, I think it's not so much to punish, it's more to that there is not even the incentive to why get into business if I'm not going to deliver, as opposed to the idea of punishing because you didn't deliver. As you said, Laurent, if they don't meet it, then in the first year, maybe they'll do it in the second year or the third year, and then they get their 5%. But I think that, unfortunately, that it's not enough of an incentive. It's like, I will calculate then that my cost is 105%, you pay me 100 and the last, or 6%, and the last 5% I get as a bonus of a bonus, you see? These companies are paying themselves their salaries anyway. So I really think it's important for them to to take on their risk. If they believe in their work, then they should be willing to invest in their own money or the money of a bank. And I think this creates a much more healthy economy, a more long-term economy, because people are really investing in their companies, as opposed to, if you look at the way that, okay, it's not working out, I close my company, I go take 6 months off because anyway, I get money from the state, and then I'll start another company. And I think that really what we want is to create capacity, because the other problem that Gabriele mentioned is the fact that there's lots of money at the moment, but there's not enough capacity. So we have to build capacity as well. And it's a, I think it's a cycle. We need to build capacity, pump more money in, build more capacity, bring in more private sector funding in, because the states don't have enough money to do all the buildings that need to be done in the next 20 years even. Sorry.
Thanks for this sharing, Nicolas. There is a question by Remy who asks, in practical terms, how do you manage to reduce or finish the contract when you receive a grant? Do you have a rescue table in the energy performance contract? Maybe. She's asking, I don't know if anybody from the speakers wants to jump in to answer this question. I guess the issue and the problem is when we do have 100% of a public incentive on the investments of the EPC, but at least in our experience, if we do have a 40% or less, then we can manage it quite easily. I mean, the public authority or the ESCO itself can get the grant, and in this way, there is no problem. The problem is when the public grant is covering most of the foreseen investments, but this is my opinion, of course.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I was just to add, it's that, for example, in our case, we have just experienced that maybe sometimes the contract lasts too much, so we have to it starts at 20 years, but one of the ways we think that it's attractive for the SMEs especially to go for it is to add a clause inside the contract saying that it is possible to reduce the contract when a grant is achieved. I'm not sure if this is something you use, or how do you, or even if there's not this possibility, do you have a rescue table inside an economic financial table according to the investment, in order to just finish the contract, even if the SME or the ESCO is just not doing the right clauses?
Nicolas, the floor is yours. You have raised your hand.
Yeah, I raised my hand. I'm not sure I completely understand the question. I'm tempted to ask you to say it in Spanish. Si puedes decir en español y después vamos a hablar en inglés de nuevo, porque yo no entiendo cuál es la rescue table.
Es una...
Hola.
Hola. Lo llamamos tabla económica de rescate. Pero it's this just to like a financial
yeah, it's a payback basically.
Payback.
So what you're asking is, and that's why I don't understand the link to the grant, but what you're asking is it possible to break the contract at any given time on the basis of a payback table? And for instance, if they've reached the amount of payback covered under the grant, then they can stop at that point.
Yes. Do you use this, for example, or is it?
But there's always no. we don't for sure, but there's always, you always have the ability. There's always either a table or a formula to calculate what is the financial situation at this point. And if you want to walk away from the contract, what has to be paid or not paid by either party. For instance, residents can, just like with your telephone bill, a telephone phone, you can break the contract, but then you have to pay some money that's left on the 24 months or the 2 months or the 1 month. And it's always more expensive at the end than at the beginning. The idea that once I, as the ESCO, have fulfilled the requirements under the grant, lets me walk away, I think is counterproductive.
Okay.
I think that grant should be counted as real money, and this is one of the problems and of Diputación de Girona as other diputations, which is you have to think like a business person. You have just given me an incentive to create contracts where I'm going to do a very good job, very quickly, cover my grant amount as an economic return, and say ciao. But the whole point is the service, the investments, and yes, this is, I think, something also. The investments don't matter. It's the service. You can do small investment with lots of service and get more savings and big investment, no service. And we have actual examples of this. A kindergarten in Latvia, lots of EU money. They spent thousands. The kindergarten got 20% savings. I was saying it's not possible after a complete renovation, installation, change of windows, doors, that you only have 20% savings. Oh, no, that's what it is. So I was working in a district heating company. So we sent an engineer there once a week. By the end of 2 months, there was 32% savings just by touching the button. You see? So, but the owners, be it a public or a private owner, they don't know how to manage that. They need the service. Okay. So please don't do that. Don't let them get away.
Okay.
If something goes wrong, we introduced in our tender the possibility to enlarge the contract, but not if everything go wrong. Okay, it's a big problem and the contract is break and finished. But if something goes wrong, then we introduce the possibility to enlarge the contract. For example, start with 8 years or 7 years long, and the possibility to enlarge the contract to 10, 12 years longer, to pay the amount with the energy saving and not with the incentive. The aim is that. It's possible to, if we consider that in the tender, when we build the tender at the start, the rules are clear, then the ESCO participate and know that if something goes wrong, 50% of the incentives doesn't arrive for any reason, because of problems, different problems, there's this possibility before the break of the contract. It's one of the solutions that we put into the tender.
Thanks, Gabriele. Any other comment or experience? Otherwise, I will move to another question addressed to Pier Gabriele, that was if you can share with us some example of criteria in terms of percentage of energy saving or a percentage of renewable energy or CO2 emission reduction that are normally used to allocate the ERDF or conto termico at Italian level funds. And the question was also if it is always the same percentage and criteria, or if the public authorities normally get more grants in case of, for example, deeper renovations?
Yes, at the moment, for example, conto termico, in each material inside have a quality target. At this moment, we don't have a criteria, a target in terms of percent of energy saving or CO2 emission. It's a good idea for the future to put the target on CO2 emission, for example. In the new performance contract, the new kind of performance contract, we are now thinking to mobility performance contract. The target is not the energy saving, the target is the CO2 reduction, something different. But now the incentives, conto termico, is focused on the quality of each material. For example, the transmittance of the windows, the quality of the insulation systems. So the sum of all these quality materials give the possibility to reach the incentives. There's something new at the moment that we see as the new instruments linked to the PNRR program. We foresee that they are thinking to link the incentive to, for example, the nearly zero energy building, 20% more. 20% more to an energy, a nearly zero energy building is the new target. It's something that's it's more similar to a percentage of energy saving. But it's something new. It's coming. Now we are linked to, and also the ERDF, the regional incentives are the same of conto termico. They are exactly on the quality of the materials, the singular material, the window, insulation.
Laurent, do you have any comments or?
No, it's the answer I was expecting. Thank you.
Great. And Nicholas, have you raised up your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a question on the last point that Pier Gabriele made, which is when he's saying quality, are we talking? Is it basically like basically the Italian standard? Like as if, you know, if I go to the European standard and there's a I don't know what it's like in EU dash taka 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 for windows, so much for this standard for insulation. Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, yes. The Italian criteria, conto termico criteria, are based on European criteria.
So we can all converge. In other words, I'll be able to have it. I can look at your table and I understand what your quality requirements are.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's what we all need to do.
Okay, so let's move to Laurent. There was a specific question connected, of course, also with the SME engagement into the EPC processes. And there was a question focused on on better understanding the Operene organization that you mentioned. How does it work, and who created or promoted it in a way? And the second question was related to fair subcontracting processes from the ESCOs to the SMEs. And the question was specifically which type of tendering clauses are included in your tender in order to ensure that this is fair, definitely. Thanks,
Okay.
Laura.
Thank you. I prefer to share my screen. Can you see my Word document
Yes.
written in
Yes.
red? Yes.
Yeah.
So Operen, it was two engineers who was a manager of SMEs, and they wanted to answer some EPC tenders, but they can't because they were too small and they need to find other SMEs to group with them and so on, and it was complicated. So they decided to found the Operen Society, which is a society just to group some SMEs to answer EPCs. That's all. So they have 40 members at this time, 40 different SMEs, some on electricity SMEs, other heating and ventilation, other carpenter, and so on. 40 on the whole region. And when there is a EPC tender, they call all their members who wants to answer with me on this tender. And so when the EPC tender is in Grenoble, the SMEs around Grenoble are motivated, but not the other, and so on. And so they compose, I don't know if it's the right word, but they compose the group who will answer a specific tender. And they take in charge, as Operen, they take in charge the leadership of a groupment, of a group, the administrative aspects, and also the savings guarantee. So the SMEs have just to do the job, the work, that's all. They are taking in charge, Operen is taking in charge all the administrative and savings guarantee questions. I give you the link with their website where you can see their offer. But yes, you can see that. Is it enough for you? It's exactly what we do for municipalities. We say, oh, municipalities are too small to get EPC alone, so we have to organize grouping of buildings or grouping of municipalities, and it's exactly the same initiative, but on the SME side.
Yeah, Laurent, there is a question from Remy asking if this initiative was definitely successful. Are they competitive, the SMEs versus ESCOs, or they are working together with ESCOs maybe?
It depends on the contract because when there is many energy supply, a large part of energy supply in a contract, it's not for them. But if it's a big renovation of one building in one municipality without energy supply, yes, they are competitive. And you can see on the website, I can share you the website if you want. Here, you can see the website, yes?
Yes, perfectly.
So they have been created in 2018, and they have 30 million euros investment in in EPC tenders, and there are 40 SMEs involved in the project, and they are mostly working on dwellings, on housing. For this time, it's 4,000 dwellings renovated by them. What they don't do is the third-party financing. It's only the job, as we have the French model. Okay, they have not to support the investment. The investment is supported by the municipality. They only do the job and make the savings guarantee for many years, as you said. Yes, that's okay.
It was a
Thank you, Laurent.
Yes. Okay, thanks. This is clear. We can go through the question, on the fairness of the subcontracting process.
The question was, what is a fair subcontracting between an ESCO and a SME? what we include in the, on one side, we include some constraints in the tender. You have here the text of a constraint we include in the tender. So we say to the enterprises who want to give us an offer that they have to define a certain percentage of the work of the investment due by SMEs. It's an engagement of them. And then if they don't do that, they have penalties. For example, they say it's a €1 million contract. They say, okay, I will have €300,000 for SMEs. If they reach this goal, it's okay. If they don't reach this goal, they have a penalty equal to the part of SMEs they don't reach. You understand? And it's clear in the tender. So it's one side.
Does the SME get that money? Does the SME get the money, or does the money?
No, because they are not defined. But it's just to motivate the big ESCOs to work with local enterprises and to pay attention to include local enterprises in their project. In reality, in practice, we have no example of these penalties because it's clear the ESCOs include subcontracting to SMEs, and it works.
But is it compulsory, or it's a awarding criteria?
Yes, it's just an awarding criteria. So we say if you do that, you have a better chance to get the market, to get to win the tender. That's all, and it works. Yeah. On the other side, you have.
Sorry, Laurent, you put just SME is a criteria, or SME should be located in Lyon,
no, but
your region.
You can't. It's not allowed to say. But on the other side, as I wrote at the end, you have to discuss with them. You say that Siemens don't want to work with local SMEs. Okay, if they don't want, they don't want. But other ESCOs want or accept to work with SMEs or to work with local enterprises. And so it's their responsibility. If Siemens don't want to do that, they will not be selected. That's all. And so we organize some discussion breakfast between ESCOs, between SMEs, ESCOs, and so on, where we just organize the meeting between them, discussion between them. And that's all. They find, yes, quite easily, they find good people to work with. Yeah. Is it okay for you?
For me, it's okay and clear. Thanks, Laurent. Yeah. And you want to say something?
No, that it's clear. And in our case, in order to, well, it's not, in order to ensure, no, but in order to try to get local SMEs from the region that we're just working, then we put a tendering clause saying that the carbon footprint of the transport service from the well, we do this and we score it in the tendering process.
Just what you must have in mind, it's not you can't do that in one day. It's a long-term discussion. Yes. It's not, yes, we do that since 10 years, and progressively the ESCOs discuss with SMEs, and progressively they include SMEs, and we have also many EPC with 100% of SMEs, but it takes time.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and we go back now to Nicolas again. There were two questions more. The first one again is concerning the Europa platform. During your presentation, you talked about accountability and mentioned that it is definitely possible to track energy savings and costs throughout the EPC process. Does this include also measurement and verification data, possibly? And the second question, I think it's similar to one of the early ones proposed by Laurent. I guess that is related to a specific case. If someone pays back the cash flow of an ESCO under the EPC contract, how to keep the guarantee of the performance still alive, and would be again the ESCO be still responsible of the management of the contract or not, and how this is defined. So interesting questions. The floor is yours, Nicolas.
Yeah, and they tie together exactly. You're right. Here's where we tie back to my question to Pier Gabriele, which is that everything is decided before the project starts. What are the targets, the qualitative targets? And we don't speak about percentages, we speak about exactly so many cubic meters of air through bedrooms per second, for instance. So once the project is done and there has a period of testing, and that depends on the kind of project, it can be a few months, it can be much longer. Once that's done, then we can test every single one of those targets. If the targets are met, then the financing is put into place. When the financing is put into place, in other words, we've freed up the cash, the balance sheet of the SMEs or the group of SMEs, and I'm really impressed by Afren. When that happens, they don't get 100%, especially at the beginning. They get 80%, let's say. Maybe on the third or fourth contract, they'll get close to 95%. But of course, they still have 20% that they're going to receive on a quarterly basis throughout the contract. So that keeps their interest. But even if they didn't have that, they're selling a service. If they don't provide the service at the level that they promised to provide it, then we can step in. And this is actually something that's interesting for owners, be it a public authority or homeowners, is that they don't know where's the line. When is it not correct? I have a perfect example for you. We have an NGO that represents owners. And one of the buildings that I really think are good buildings, one of the ladies there complained that she was cold in her apartment. And of course, the ESCO goes to the apartment. They put the calibrated thermometer in the middle of the room. They measure, and look, you have 21.5 to 21 to 22. So what are you complaining about? Next winter, she complains again. This time she calls us, or actually her daughter calls us. And we say to the lady, what's happening? Exactly. Well, you know, it's cold. And I talk to the ESCO. No, it's not cold. Do you know how those old people are? So then we physically go there and we look at where she sits. Well, she sits on the wall that's on the side of the corridor of the entranceway on the first floor. So within 1 meter of that wall, it's cold. In the middle of the room, it's 21.5. So what did the ESCO do? They put some indoor insulation. It didn't cost them a lot of money, and the lady's happy now. But that's the kind of thing that you're not going to know, and you won't know who to turn to. So that's where it is useful to have this third party who depends on your money. Therefore, you can depend on them to support you. And that's how the accountability and the measurement and verification work. Finally, of course, measurement and verification is done online. We have a platform for that.
Okay, thanks, Nicolas. Don't know if the people making such questions want to add or to further comment on this. Otherwise, I will move to Pier Gabriele again for the very last two questions to him. There was a question concerning, again, criteria. Are they the same ones for the different grants, was the question at Italian level, I guess. And the second one was the following: when the ESCO directly receives the public fund, the tendering process seems successful if it is already pre-assigned. Do you have any experience in the case the public authority is the entity that received the grant, and how do you manage it with the ESCO?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. No, just answer the previous answer. The criteria used are the same at the moment for the different grants that we have. Conto Termico or regional incentives are the same. Quality of materials, as I said before, at the moment. And the other answer, sure, when the ESCO directly received the public fund issue, the tendering is successful if it's already pre-assigned. But when we are able to convince a public authority to keep the grant, is better for the ESCO because it's simpler, and the ESCO is also the ESCO have a guarantee, because the problem to keep the incentives and manage the incentives is allocated to the public authority, to the public body. So, but it's not so simple to convince public bodies to manage the incentive because they need time and resources and skills. And if we help them, so they can try to manage the incentive and to pay the ESCO is happy in this case, because if there's any problem with the incentives, the public pays everything to the ESCO. So, but the problem is that public bodies are have not resources to manage. This is the main problem that we see in this moment. I don't know, Silvio, if you agree with this. See, I asked to Silvio because we see the Italian by two sides.
No, it's good. I don't have much to add.
It's like that. Thank you, Silvio.
Okay, so if no other comments or question, let's move to Lohan. Yeah, this was one question coming from me, from our experience. I would say that one of our concern in relation to confronting with the market actors on EPC proposal is that we cannot for sure reach all the potentially concerned and interested SMEs or ESCOs on the market, and therefore we can be charged in a way as EPC facilitators to make in a way a selection, an upfront selection of them, excluding some of them. So how did you avoid this currently and in the past? And the other question, always related with our experience, is that the biggest barrier for engaging SMEs for EPC in our regional context is that we think they do not have the investments and skills capacity required by public authorities, especially with big projects, as you mentioned. in the case of implementation of relevant energy retrofit measures, because most of the cases investments now are over 2 million euros. And SMEs, they often cannot guarantee the energy saving performance that ESCOs normally do. So as energy agents, we are not normally allowed to facilitate deals, let's say deals between SMEs and ESCOs, since this would be seen in a way as against competition rules, market rules, or as against market, what I call the disturbance activity of the market. So again, how did you manage this aspect in your projects and experience?
Yes, okay, I really understand what you mean, because we have faced that in the past. So we don't avoid this. We just want to be sure that the local ones, local SMEs that want to make an offer will have a chance to do it, and to inform many of them as possible, not all of them. Because if you make a survey of your organization, as we propose, as we made in the stepping project, you will see that at the end there are not so many local enterprises, regional enterprises that will be interested. 10, 15, not more. And so it's not so complicated to reach them.
Sorry, can I interrupt you, because I think you share your your email.
Yes, okay, excuse me.
No problem at all, but privacy.
This one is better.
Yeah.
There were loving messages from someone.
So yes, if you want to facilitate the access of SMEs in the tender of EPC tenders, you have to standardize and make more small procurement than a big one. It's if you respect this, you will interest local regional enterprises. And for example, our regional public ESCO, SPLOZ, has led in the past years 32 EPC tenders. So at the beginning, the local regional enterprises were curious. They say, oh, is it interesting for me or not? And they don't answer. After the 5th tender, they say, okay, I will try. And they come, but they were not selected because ESCOs were better. But after the 10th tender, it was very simple for them, because the standardization give them, yes, all the administrative part was already done in the previous tender. And then Operen appears and was created, and then they started to win some tenders, 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then all over. So it's not in 1 year or in one month. It takes time, but slowly, if you have a standardization, if you adapt your project to their capacity to do, you can yes, include them progressively. How to reach SMEs? You can make information meetings. It's quite easy to do. It's when you do that, it's related to the next question. When you do that, you don't do a disturbance of the market. You just inform the market that on this territory you will launch many 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 EPC tender in the next month or in the next years, and if they want to answer, they have to group them together. For example, if you say today in November that you will launch a tender in June, just to inform. You don't have to explain the details of the tender you will launch. just to say, we will renovate one school and one gymnasium and so on in June, and we will make an EPC tender for this. If you want to, the market will, the size of the market will be, for example, of a project will be, for example, 2 million euros. You have not to give the details, just the frame. And that's all. If you are interested, they can organize their grouping before the tender. That's all. You understand? And
yeah. Thanks, Lorana. I'm sure that this is this context and this framework of yours is really related also to a political agenda and willingness from your region or from your local authority to push the involvement of SMEs into the EPC market. And we are not experiencing, unfortunately, this agenda, but I think this is really the main issue for making experiences and starting up projects like yours that definitely have, I truly agree with such approach and really makes sense to me.
And you can also note that Operan is very interesting for this, because Operan is searching by himself the local enterprises. You don't have to move. They do that because it's their job. About the second part of the question about the ability of SMEs to make the energy service guarantee, we have many cases of contract between SMEs and ESCOs. So the responsibility of the leadership of a group is taken by the regional enterprise until the end of the work, and then the leadership is taken by the ESCO for the services and the guarantee for years. And it's a fair arrangement, because the interest of local SMEs is just to do the work and not to do the services. It's not their job. And on the other side, the job of the ESCOs is to ensure this services and so on. And it's fair. We have 2 or 3 examples of this at regional level. It's clear?
Very clear, yeah, very clear. Okay.
We have not influenced this arrangement. They have do that by themselves. We have do nothing, just this breakfast to make them in contact, and that's all.
Yeah, but yeah, I truly believe that it's a lucky context and framework, because there is the political willingness and agenda of involving SMEs, and the market itself of SMEs is ready and took the initiative itself to make a step into this market. So yeah, lucky context, I would say, but let's make some learning about this experience of yours. If any other comment or question, we will move to the very last 2 questions to Nicolas. There was a question concerning the benefit rate that the contract has in order to ensure that the ESCO is in a way, ESCOs are attracted in a way from such proposal. And I guess this was a question from Laurent. Are you planning to have a look on the situation in France? Because if I well understood, Europa consortium does not include France currently, at least. Nicolas,
should I mute?
I don't hear you.
Sorry.
Thank you. I get too excited. Is it Aditech, Silvio, that Jérôme runs?
Yeah, I think they know each other, but we have Aged then in the consortium with us from Grenoble. So Europa is covering in a way France.
Yeah, And the fact that I'm actually here in the offices of Énergie Demain, Laurent, is because, as you know, Françoise is working on third-party finance, which has always been a bit of a struggle in France. And so, yes, and I'd be very glad to talk to you, and maybe we can even do something now, to start pushing this concept, because basically, and this builds on what everybody has been saying in this meeting, and goes back to the questions as well. We need to converge methodologies. We need to standardize across Europe the process by which we attract SMEs to work, and we make things easier for them. This in turn will allow to lower the cost of money. Today, interest zero in France, super bonus in Italy. But if you do the calculation of what is needed per square meter, and then you estimate the square meters that need to be renovated, so that we renovate, let's say, I don't know, 40% of the buildings that need to be renovated, you see that we're talking billions, trillions, actually. So we really need a process that is economically sound, so that it's very cost effective on the one hand, and it has economic returns, so that we can create more cash. The whole system has to become organic. So that answers, in a sense, France. Now, what is the benefit? Lisa, the benefit is not so much to ensure that it's attractive to ESCOs. ESCOs are not interested in the levels of savings that we think are necessary, and that are possible with very little technology before renewable. We think you can get to 60%, no problem, in most of Northern Europe. There we have the data. For Spain, we're starting to look at the data, and we see at least 50% because of the amount of money that's spent on cooling. And the cooling is done on a fragmented basis. So, building by building, the cost, and apartment by apartment, the cost of that, hardware, software, poor filters, poor service, disease, is huge. So when you put together the externalities, there's a lot more that can be done. However, the business today of ESCOs is to do just a little bit less than what they can do, so that they're always sure to meet their guarantees. And I remember even 10 years ago in Latvia, the minimum savings required was something like 110 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. We pushed it to 90. We're at 70 today. The government's at 80. So in 10 years, suddenly we found 30 kilowatt hours per square meter. Where have they been hiding all this time? There's a lot more that we can do, even on a low technology basis. But it's going to take the kind of incentives from the government, and the kind of pushing that Laurent is doing to create the right environment, so that SMEs, for instance, can say, yes, we can do this.
Nicolas, Silvio, have you raised up your hand?
Yes, thank you. I would like to take the opportunity to have the visionary perspective of Nicolas about okay, we have been living recently in low energy prices world with low inflation rate. Now it seems that it's time for very high energy costs, but on the other hand also high inflation rate. How would this affect the APC schemes and renovation wave?
Yeah, unfortunately, our demand is fractured, whereas our supply is very well coordinated. So I'm very concerned, when I see that France, for instance, they're paying the gas companies a subsidy. Why not pay the owners the subsidy and have the owners really pay the big bill so they see it? But why? Well, because the gas companies, they're together and they're knocking on the door together. And this asymmetry of information is absolutely destroying any climate policy. I read today in Le Monde that Macron has announced that they are going to do more nuclear plants. Well, that brings down the price of energy, baby. And so what's my incentive to do anything? One does sort of, the way you just turned your chair, Silvio, it's like, yeah, it's kind of hopeless if, they can do that, then But I think we just have to be insistent, and it's meetings like this one, and getting enough of us at the local level saying, no, we don't want another nuclear plant next to our house, but what we can do is we can save it in the building. There's a perfect example in Riga. In Riga, there's 300 buildings that consume 330 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. It's a 120, it's a power plant that we can close if they were to save that energy. So rationalize the use, provide better health, better comfort, so that owners can do something. And that we have to keep insisting. But it's a very hard bet. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Nicolas. Time is really running. I will move to the two last question of this session to Laurent. The first one concerned the quality of works, since you mentioned that throughout your presentation, that SMEs are allowed not to provide public authorities any certification label, which is a cost for sure, but it is also a relevant element informing about the quality of the work of any organization. So how do you, in a way, evaluate the quality of works if any certification label is available? And the second question concerns the initial survey on the market analysis that you always suggest to reach a regional context aiming at entering an EPC process. The question was if the concerned public authorities, for example, a region, concretely pays for such a market analysis when making this decision. And it is in a way justified because, of course, this information is strongly linked, as I said before, to their political agenda, maybe. So the floor is yours. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. So you can share my screen. Yeah, it's okay?
Yeah.
Then first question about the qualification. It's just a question of time. If you say today you need all the qualification in 1 month, it's not possible for SMEs. If you have multiple tenders and procurement in the next years, you say, okay, this year, 21, we just want you to make an offer. But next year, 22, we will look at this label, and 23 we will add other labels. Then you let the time to the SMEs to see if it's interested for them or not, and if they want to invest in these labels. So you just have to let time to time. You understand? Yes. The second point is the saving guarantee is the main motivation for the quality of their work. If the work is not of quality, they will not reach the savings guarantee. So it's their responsibility. And what we say in Rhône-Alpes, that when the same enterprise work on an EPC or not on an EPC, it's not the same people who are working. When it's an EPC, it's the most qualified, the high level of employees who are working, and not the same as the business as usual. Yeah, it's okay for you?
Yes, yes, it is clear.
And about the second question. So yes, in the stepping project, this market analysis was not so high in the price, between 5,000 euros to 8,000 euros. But yes, it's difficult to find money to do that. But no, when I discuss with a local authority, I always speak of this. And no, we have free studies like this in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, and also we have included this in the AREC Occitanie Stepping Plus project, And yes, it's you have to take opportunity of external financing to convince also the regional authority. Yeah, it's complicated. It's not very simple. Rejan, you will add something about you? Rejan is not there. So yes, you also have to have in mind that it's not a study for one building. You don't do such a study just for one project. You do such study because you have in mind that you will develop EPC tender, not one, but 5, 3, 4, 10 in the next years. So it makes sense. If it's only for one project, it doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
Okay, then there was, you are actually right, Laurent, there was another very last question concerning the scale of your experience, I guess, around the involvement again of SMEs into EPC processes. But I didn't get it. I thought it was not complete, the question.
Yeah. It just, yes, yeah. It's always the question. It depends of the urban density. If you have a big urban density, 50 kilometers is sufficient around, because in this 50 kilometers, you will find enough regional or local enterprises to be interested. If it's a very rural part of a region, 100 kilometers seems to be a good scale. Is it the answer? I don't know who
was making the question, asking the question. Maybe Remy, I don't know. Really don't know. No.
So the scale must be quite large because, as I said before, there are not so many local and regional enterprises interested. And so if you want to have some of them, you have to look around to a quite large scale. Yeah.
Right, and clear to me, since it's past midday, and yeah, we set this time for our session. I would like to close the session in a few minutes, but I don't know if there are any comments or other questions. If Silvio wish to add anything relevant, otherwise I will close in a few minutes the session. And
no, for me, yeah. I think it was nicely done also today. I also want to thank Nicolas and Per Gabriele for their participation. And for sure, I will give the floor to Nicolas for last word, I think.
Yeah, of course.
And I want to say thank you.
Wow.
It was too much.
Lost Nicolas. No, but I was actually, I don't know if he's back, but yeah, I was also going to thank a million again, sincerely, all our guests and speakers. We have a reply to all questions posted in the past days on our Google Drive. So I'm happy that and hope everyone is satisfied. I think it was in a way inspiring with such speakers, this session, and I hope it was at least useful for all. Before closing,
maybe Lisa, just remind the next meetings we have.
Yeah, I was just going to do that. Kindly remind you that we will have the third and last question and answer session on measurement and verification procedures. Again, hosting actually there will be 2 people, special guests, the evaluation, the efficiency evaluation organization director, Dennis Tanguay, and the Italian representative of EVO, as well as FIRE, that is at Italian level, the network of energy managers. and they will be hosted by us on next 16 December at 2 p.m. Central Europe time, because they will both connected, one from Canada and the other from Japan. Mm-hmm. So we found out this compromise in terms of time. But yeah, please, I would say stay tuned, because we will send you details about the place where to post questions to such relevant speakers on such important matter and topic. So again, thanks you all for attending, for your participation. We will thank Nicolas by email as well, because he disappeared. So hear from you soon. Thanks and have a nice day.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Ciao a tutti.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.